Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning. Today I'm taking a look at the LA Chargers and going over whether or not they should trade for former All-Pro cornerback Stephon Gilmore. But before we get into that topic, just a quick question for those of you viewing, especially the Chargers fans. How far do you have the Chargers going this year? You have them making the playoffs, getting a playoff win, go to the AFC Championship, Super Bowl, whatever it is. What is your realistic take? Try to be a little unbiased, Chargers fans. What's your realistic prediction for how far they will go this year? But getting straight into it. For me, I've made several other videos on other teams. It's hard if you're any team that's really one piece away from being a serious threat not to at least consider a Stephon Gilmore trade. I mean, a guy that at one point in time, just 2 years ago, was Defensive Player of the Year, a guy that could still be top 5 at his position, a guy that can maybe be number 1 at his position again when you got a coach like Brandon Staley leading them. It's hard not to consider a trade, especially if the price is right. You know, if it's a first-round pick they're looking for, as in the Patriots, I'm not making that deal. But if we see another Julio Jones type trade where a 2nd and 5th round pick or whatever it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, something like that, 2nd and 4th, just slips through your fingers for an all-pro guy at their position, I can't see that happen again. The Chargers, you got to make a move for a guy like Stephon Gilmore. And I know there's other guys out there. There's been speculation on Xavier Howard, but Xavier Howard, he's going to cost a first-round pick and then some. And I get it's a different situation. He's younger. He's actually on a multi-year deal. You're not trading for a one-year deal in Stephon Gilmore. So I understand that, but this is a Stephon Gilmore trade video. To me, whether or not they should do it is, like I said, the price, that's going to be the first thing. But also the second thing is the perspective and the idea of how far the Chargers themselves is in the front office, Tom Telesco, Brandon Staley. Where do they realistically see them going this year? Do they see this year as like, we're going far this year, we're going for it all? Or do they see it as, this year, look, we want to do great, we want to improve, but Super Bowl aspirations, we realize we might just be 1 year away. We want to just test run this year. Maybe if we don't trade for anyone this year, we'll learn that, our secondary, Asante Samuel Jr. turned out to be the best corner in his draft. Secondary doesn't need to be touched. Derwin James is healthy. We are good. But our O-line, as good as it was rebuilt, it's going to need another guard or something like that. So we need to save our draft capital for the next year or whatever the situation is that they could learn throughout this year. Or do they believe, look, I don't care how good Asante Samuel Jr. is. I believe in him. I believe in our line. I believe in everything we have. Herbert, Eckler, Keenan, Joey Bosa, Chenna Nwosu, Brandon Staley. I want to go a step further, and I want to make a run this year. I can't blame either perspective you look at it, saying, I don't want to make any big trades. I just want to see what we got this year, or I believe in what we got, and then I want to add more and make a serious run this year. Like I said, I can't knock on any route, whether you want to go risky, go big, or go home, or just be conservative and let the players play as to what we have right now. Again, I don't blame either route. But to me, imagining a secondary that has both Stephon Gilmore and Derwin James, guys that were at one point in their careers both top, or guys that were number 1 at their position at some point in their careers, you can make the argument that they could still be number 1 this year, but I can't give that to them yet today. Derwin James coming off an injury, Stephon Gilmore possibly going to a brand new defense to deal with. Like I said, the potential is there, especially with Brandon Staley and especially with them feeding off each other, with Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, Chris Harris Jr., Adderley. I could see it happening, but right now, conservatively, I would say 2 guys that are top 5 in their position, both being on the same secondary. It's hard for me to not want to explore that trade. And then up front, you got Joey Bosa and Chenna Nwosu. Hopefully, Jerry Tillery will improve. Kenneth Murray's kind of becoming the captain of that front 7. How do you not imagine the possibilities of that being on the same team, on the same defense that might be able to finally put a stop to the Chiefs? Then on offense, you can rely on Herbert. You can rely on this new offensive line of Rashawn Slater, Corey Linsley, Bulaga, Matt Filer, Odeo Bushi. How do you not have trust in that? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, Josh Palmer, Jared Cook. It's hard to not say, look, we do have the roster, and I do want to add more and get Stephon Gilmore, especially if he's cheap, as in a 2nd rounder, or maybe you could get away with a 3rd or 4th rounder. He's a guy that's 30 going on 31 on a 1-year deal, who's coming off somewhat of an injury, who is just, you don't know what he's going to be in a brand new defense. You could get away with possibly being a 3rd or 4th round pick trade, and at that point, how do you not consider it? The deal just sounds too good to me. Even if he doesn't turn out to be the guy that puts the cherry on top of the Chargers and take them to a Super Bowl, if you got value out of him, if you only traded for a 3rd round pick, I don't know if you would have drafted a guy that was better in the 3rd round than Stephon Gilmore, and therefore, I got to make the trade. I got to, at bare minimum, Tom Telesco, please make a phone call. I feel like the Chargers as much as the entire fan base wanted Julio Jones, the Chargers front office didn't seem interested in all. This way, please be the other way around. Stephon Gilmore, no matter who he goes to, he's going to be a game changer. And the Chargers, I think it'd be awesome to have him on their side. To me, just a secondary, like I said, with a former All-Pro Chris Harris Jr., with a possibly up-and-coming, Asante Samuel Jr., a great number 2 in Michael Davis, Stephon Gilmore, Derwin James, Joey Bosu, Chenna Nwosu, Kenneth Murray up front, and Brandon Staley to lead this all, a guy that led the #1 defense last year. You're telling me this roster can't repeat it again? How do you not at least consider that temptation? And I get it. Like I said, there's things to consider. Maybe they don't want to take the aggressive route, which is kind of Tom Telesco style. I understand that nonchalant approach, but at some point in time, the value is just too good of a deal. And I'm hoping Brandon Staley will see some part of this or have some aggressiveness to him. I'm hoping this defense, someone will talk, someone will step up and be like, look, we could get this guy. I'm just hoping the Chargers make an effort and make a phone call. This year, I got the Chargers going anywhere from 10 to 12 wins. 10-7 is kind of their floor. 12-5 to me is kind of their ceiling. Of course, all pending injuries, but Stephon Gilmore, he's the type of player that could really up your wins. Who knows, to 11-6 and 13-4. I'm getting real speculative here. I'm banking on him having a rebound, heck of a season, but who knows? I believe in Gilmore. I believe in this Chargers team, and I think they should try and make a trade. Just the fact so that no one else does. I don't know if the Patriots will necessarily want to see him go to the AFC, but, I think if the price is right, you got to make it happen. I think this Chargers team could go far if they trade for Stephon Gilmore, but as always, I do want to hear your guys' opinions. Do you agree with my take that the Chargers should trade for him? I'm a little sick. Or do you disagree that the Chargers should stay away? Too expensive, too old, 1-year contract, just not worth it. And of course, referring back to the question today, what do you think, or how far do you think the Chargers will go? To me, I got a playoff win. I don't know if I got AFC Championship, but I do have one playoff win going to the Chargers this year. As always, and of course, guys, thanks for watching. 2-minute warning.